They fined me $450 for unauthorized animal use because my golden retriever Scout sat on the dock while I read the morning paper. The violation notice came in a plastic sleeve, double-stamped, with a 10-day compliance countdown. 10 days to erase my dog from the view of the lake my father built 30 years ago. Welcome to my channel. I'm Mark, civil engineer, mid-50s, Ohio Valley born, now living along Lake Adeline. I make these stories so good people don't get rolled by bad boards. If you're new here, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. I like knowing which lakes you protect. I bought my place in 2010 when the HOA still held fish fries on the shore and the bylaws fit in a 3-ring binder. Dad's ashes are mixed into the corner pier posts. He'd spent his last years restoring the dock, one plank at a time. After he passed, I promised Mom I'd keep it clean, keep it open for neighbors' kids to fish from. That promise is why the letter hit like a punch. The envelope smelled faintly of copier toner and air freshener. Inside, page 2 listed domestic animal violation, public nuisance, and surface use infraction, each cited with a paragraph number from the covenants, conditions restrictions, sections 4.3, 6.2, and 9.1b. I ran my finger over the ink. The toner still flaked a little. They'd printed it that morning. The president, Cheryl Lang, had scrawled a note at the bottom. Remove immediately or face lien escalation. I folded it once, slid it under a paperweight shaped like a surveyor's compass, and watched the lake through my kitchen window. Scout barked at a heron gliding low over the water, unaware he'd been declared contraband. The irony? Our HOA's logo features a golden retriever silhouette, Cheryl's predecessor's dog, Daisy. I wasn't the only one. 2 doors down, widower Frank Haney got a $200 citation for leaving a life vest hanging on his railing. Across the inlet, the Wilsons were fined for having a swing set visible from public water. It all started after the HOA hired a new management firm, Lakeshore Properties, that billed by citation count. I'd reviewed those contracts before. They tie revenue to compliance performance. Incentivized enforcement. I called Cheryl that afternoon. Her voice came through the speakerphone crisp, almost rehearsed. Mr. Grant, the rule is no pets on shared waterfront structures. It's about sanitation. It's my dock, Cheryl. The HOA didn't build it. It's within the common view corridor. That makes it regulated use. So if a mallard lands there, do you fine the duck? Pause. Then, we'll see you at the hearing on the 12th. I hung up, heart thudding against the phone base. 10 days. Dad's promise. That night, I sat on the dock with Scout, flashlight cutting small cones of light over the ripples. I traced the property line markers embedded in the pilings. Bronze discs, stamped, Lot 27A, recorded 1994, county survey. They were clearly inside my deeded boundary, 15 feet waterward of the mean high line, confirmed in the title plat. I knew because I drew that plat 21 years ago as a junior engineer. The next morning, coffee in hand, I pulled the deed binder from my safe. Section 2, Easements and Appurtenances, line 37. Grantor conveys all riparian rights pertaining to Lot 27A, including but not limited to docking, mooring, and animal companionship incidental to domestic enjoyment. Animal companionship. Dad had insisted that phrase stay. Still, power didn't make you immune. HOAs thrive on silence and neighbor fear. Frank waved when I passed his porch but looked away quickly, as if greeting me might earn another fine. The atmosphere reminded me of small-town zoning boards, where a nod can be taken as dissent. I decided to attend the next open session. When I arrived, folding chair in hand, Cheryl was already at the head table, yellow blazer perfectly pressed. The board members flanked her like paralegals, laptops open, microphones blinking red. "Next," she said. I stepped forward, violation notice in hand. Mark Grant, Lot 27A, regarding citation 2025-041. "You're over your 3-minute comment limit," she snapped before I spoke another word. The neighbors watched, some sympathetic, others curious, a few gleeful. I laid the letter on the table anyway. "You cited a personal dock as common property. That's a mapping error, and I can prove it." She leaned back, smile thin. "Then bring your proof. But until the board accepts it, fines accrue daily. $25 per day after the 10th. $25 a day. 10 days. $250 for letting my dog nap beside me. On the walk home, gravel popped under my boots. Scout trotted ahead, leash slack. I was already drafting a plan in my head. Start with parcel maps, chain of title records, and the 2008 shoreline reconstruction permits. If Lakeshore wanted a fight in the language of clauses and coordinates, I spoke that fluently. Before turning in, I opened a notebook and wrote a single line across the top. Day 1. Document everything. Then I tap E. The violation notice above my desk, like a target. I didn't know yet that the paper trail would lead straight into their own bylaws, and that somewhere, buried in the filing cabinet of a county office, sat the clause that would flip the board's entire authority upside down. The first document I pulled was the original plat from 1994, thick parchment, black ink fading at the edges. The HOA boundary line curved neatly around my property, stopping 5 feet short of the dock posts. I measured twice with a ruler, then scanned it for the digital file. Next came the building permit from 2008, when Dad and I replaced the west pilings. The permit listed private riparian structure, owner maintained, clear as daylight. By noon, my dining table looked like a clerk's desk. Survey maps, county filings, engineering notes, each labeled with yellow sticky tabs. I'd already marked the next step, chain of title verification at the county recorder's office. Inside the records room, it smelled like dust, old toner, and that faint sweetness of paper decay. The clerk, a woman named Leslie with reading glasses on a silver chain, squinted at my lot number. "Huh," she said, flipping the binder. "Here's something odd. Lake Adeline Association assigned a management covenant in 2005, but it excludes parcels 26 through 28. That's you. Excludes. Meaning they never filed control rights over your shoreline. Then how are they fining me?" She shrugged. "Because nobody ever checks." I left with certified copies, stamped with today's date, May 4th, 2025. The stamp hit the paper with that satisfying thwack like a gavel. I folded them carefully and slid them into my binder. By evening, I'd built the framework, deed proof, survey line, exclusion clause. All I needed was to cross-check the HOA's current declaration, but the new management firm, Lakeshore, kept those on a password-protected portal. So I asked my neighbor, Dana, retired librarian, board watcher, sharp tongue, to log in with her resident credentials. She poured me coffee while her screen loaded. "What are they up to this time?" "Claiming my dock's communal," she snorted. "Then half the lake's communal. Here, look at this section, page 12. I leaned in. Section 9.1b. Shared water structures within HOA maintained shorelines are subject to regulation. HOA maintained. My dock wasn't. "Print that," I said. Dana smiled, hitting the key with a librarian's satisfaction. "You always were the one who read the footnotes." Knowledge nugget number 1. In most states, HOAs only govern property explicitly recorded under their declaration. If a lot or structure is excluded from that filing, their jurisdiction ends at the legal boundary, even if visually contiguous. The next morning, I emailed Cheryl a polite notice of contest, attaching copies of my deed and the 2005 exclusion page. No aggression, just precision. Her reply came 2 hours later. "Mr. Grant, the board will review at its discretion. Fines continue pending decision. Classic stall. They bet on fatigue." I called an old colleague, Jeff Navarro, now a municipal attorney. "Mark, keep calm," he said. "They'll bluff. If they file a lien, respond with a notice of dispute within 10 days. That blocks title attachment." So I hold my ground. Exactly. Don't threaten, just document. Paper beats rumor. That night, I took Scout for a walk under sodium orange streetlights. Frank was out front, holding a folded notice of his own. "Trash bin visibility," he said bitterly. $50. "They're weaponizing the handbook," I said. He sighed. "You really think you can stop them?" "I can prove their map's wrong." He looked at me, tired, but hopeful. "Then do it for all of us." 2 days later, a Lakeshore inspector showed up. Clipboard, polo shirt, reflective sunglasses. He photographed the dock, Scout, even my mailbox. I filmed quietly from my porch. Ohio's one-party consent law allowed it. He noticed and frowned. When he left, I logged the visit. Date 5/7/25. Duration 9 minutes. Actions: Photo capture, no entry. Documentation builds credibility. Emotion loses it. That night, the HOA portal posted a new announcement. Unauthorized recording of HOA agents. Violation of privacy. They were clearly rattled. Early next week, I got a call from Cheryl. Mr. Grant, continued defiance may escalate to legal counsel. Cheryl, I'm not defying, I'm citing. There's a difference. You think you're smarter than the board? No, just better at reading maps. Before hanging up, she added, we'll see how the community feels about your little crusade. That's when the smear post started. Anonymous, concerned neighbor emails. Half the neighborhood CC'd. Claims that Scout attacked wildlife, that I intimidated inspectors. I recognized the phrasing. Lake Shore's boilerplate. Early in Part 2's timeline, I placed the second engagement hook naturally. If you've ever dealt with an HOA that twists words and maps until right becomes wrong, you know the feeling. Are you firmly anti-HOA, or have you seen one run fair? If you've faced this nonsense, drop a short tip in the comments so others can fight smarter, or at least like the video so the algorithm warns the next homeowner. By Friday, the board posted notice of a special assessment hearing on May 20th, thinly veiled retaliation. Assessments meant revenue. Revenue meant leverage. But I had something they didn't know, a pending filing of my own. I'd quietly contacted a title agent friend in the next county to form an LLC, Adeline Holdings 1, with me as the sole member. Its purpose? Purchase of Parcel 27B, an abandoned strip of shoreline that once belonged to the original developer. The county still listed it as unclaimed tax property, valued $2,800. That strip contained the access easement for the HOA's boat launch. I wired the payment that Friday. The deed would record in 5 business days. 5 business days. I kept that number on a post-it above my desk, right beside the violation notice. It felt like a countdown to equilibrium. During that week, I lived between 2 rhythms, coffee and conflict. Cheryl's updates dripped into my inbox like clockwork. Notice of continuing violation. Reminder of outstanding balance. Intent to lien. Each one colder than the last, but each one landing on a foundation I was quietly rearranging beneath her feet. On May 14th, the county confirmed recording of Adeline Holdings 1 as the owner of Parcel 27B. I drove straight there, a folded printout of the tax map on my passenger seat. When I reached the spot, weeds had grown through the gravel, and an old private access, HOA members only sign leaned crookedly against a post. I smiled, tapped the wood with my boot. The post was on my new property. The realization hit with a clean click, like the sound of a seatbelt locking. The HOA's only boat launch and their shoreline maintenance right-of-way ran over land they didn't own anymore. They'd been trespassing for years without realizing it. I spent the rest of the afternoon photographing every inch. The camera shutter echoed softly against the hum of cicadas, the air thick with lake humidity and the faint smell of creosote from the old dock planks. Scout wandered along beside me, nose twitching. I placed a small metal survey flag at the corner, a symbolic stake in the ground. That evening, I sent Jeff, the attorney, a summary email with attachments, parcel map, deed copy, time-stamped photos. His reply came an hour later. Mark, this is leverage. Don't show your hand until they overreach publicly. Then you drop it, clean and lawful. Understood. For the next few days, I played the part of the quietly frustrated homeowner. Cheryl called again, this time pretending civility. If you just remove the dog until the board views your case, we can probably waive the fees. I let her finish. Cheryl, if I told you there's a document that changes who's in violation here, would you believe me? Don't threaten me, Mark. No threat. Just a reminder, boundaries cut both ways. She hung up. I could almost hear the flustered tapping of her keyboard through the silence. Meanwhile, the neighborhood had started to divide. Half the lake whispered that I was reckless. The other half thanked me quietly at mailboxes and sidewalks. Frank dropped off a thermos of coffee and an envelope of his own citations, 12 in total. Mailbox paint, fence height, wind chimes, you name it. We logged them in a spreadsheet labeled Pattern of Enforcement. Knowledge nugget number 2. Selective enforcement. when an HOA targets certain residents but not others for similar rule violations, can void fines and expose the board to claims of bad faith under most state statutes. By May 17th, I had a 12-page file prepared. Each document was labeled, cross-referenced, and printed twice. My engineer's brain thrived in that order. Document A1, deed, B1, parcel 27B transfer, C1, violation log, D1, photo set, dated and geotagged. The evening before the hearing, Dana stopped by with her gray cardigan pulled tight. "You sure about going public tomorrow?" "It's the only way to end it cleanly," I said. She nodded, eyes narrowing behind her glasses. "Then give them something they can't spin." I slept lightly that night, the wind pressing against the windows like shallow breaths. Scout lay near my feet, tail thumping when I stirred. The anxiety was sharper than anger now. Not just for me, for everyone tired of walking on eggshells in their own yards. Morning came pale and wet. Rain pattered the dock. The world smelled like metal and cedar. I loaded my documents into a weatherproof folder and drove to the community hall. The meeting room buzzed with murmurs, chairs scraping the tile. Cheryl and the board sat at the front again, flanked by the Lakeshore rep, a tall man with a corporate smile and a logoed folder. The microphone light glowed red. "Next, Mark Grant," Cheryl said without looking up. I stood, folder in hand. This won't take long. Before I began, I glanced at the rows of neighbors, faces tense, eyes darting between me and the board. "Before I speak, how many of you have received a citation this month?" Hands rose. A dozen, then 2 dozen. I heard a few gasps when people noticed how many. Cheryl stiffened. "Mr. Grant, this is not—" "Actually, it is," I interrupted, voice steady. "Because what affects one property owner affects all under your jurisdiction. And jurisdiction," I said, pulling the first page from the folder, "is exactly what this is about." I laid the certified deed on the table, the ink still crisp from the recorder's stamp. "This is proof that my dock lies outside HOA boundaries. Furthermore, as of May 14th, Adeline Holdings 1, which I wholly own, now holds the parcel providing your lake access." The room went dead silent except for the slow tick of the wall clock. "Meaning," I continued, "your management firm has been using that parcel without right of entry for 20 years. I'm willing to grant continued access under reasonable conditions, but until then, I expect all actions against me withdrawn." A murmur rippled through the room. Cheryl's lips parted but no sound came. The Lakeshore rep leaned toward her, whispering urgently. Across the back row, Dana's hand covered her smile. Frank-mouthed, "You did it." Cheryl finally spoke. "We'll review your claims with counsel." "You'll want to hurry," I said, "because as of next week, the insurance carrier will receive notice of potential unrecorded easement exposure. That tends to raise premiums." I gathered my folder and walked out into the rain. Behind me, the room erupted in crosstalk, half outrage, half disbelief. I could hear Cheryl's voice rising but indistinct, swallowed by the weather. Outside, I stopped under the overhang, the rain drumming against the metal roof. For the first time in weeks, I breathed without that tightness in my chest. Scout pawed at my pant leg, as if sensing the shift. Still, I knew this was only the beginning. Bureaucracies don't surrender quietly, they regroup. As I looked back toward the meeting hall lights reflecting on wet asphalt, I couldn't help wondering what they'd try next. And that's what I want to ask you. When an HOA faces losing control, how far do you think they'll go? Retaliate through rules or rebuild trust? Tell me below. I'm curious how your communities handle power. They went for retaliation. Of course they did. By Monday morning, a certified letter waited in my mailbox with that same HOA seal embossed in blue foil. Inside, immediate cease of interference with common access. They claimed my new parcel purchase posed imminent obstruction to community function. The irony almost made me laugh, until I reached the final line. Failure to comply may result in emergency injunction. That was the first time my hand actually trembled while holding their paperwork. I'd expected noise, but an injunction meant they were escalating to court optics. They wanted to scare me into retreat before the county or insurer caught wind of the access issue. So I documented, again. I filmed myself opening the envelope, reading it aloud for timestamp, then scanning each page. The habit of recording became almost ritual. The click of the phone camera, the hum of the scanner, the soft hiss of paper sliding into its tray. Every sensory detail reminded me I wasn't powerless. Frank stopped by mid-afternoon. "They just sent me a new fine, $90, says my porch light's too bright." "Let me guess, light trespass violation?" He nodded, holding out the letter. "Same boilerplate you got." I added it to our spreadsheet. 72 recorded fines in 1 week across 15 homes. The pattern wasn't random. It was retaliation. Knowledge nugget number 3. Under federal fair housing principles, retaliatory enforcement after a protected complaint, such as contesting jurisdiction or exposing financial mismanagement, can constitute unlawful coercion. That evening, Jeff called after reading my latest email. "They're bluffing, Mark. The injunction threats hot air. But be smart. Don't block access yet. Let them overcommit. So just watch, document, and let the trap close itself." His tone was calm but deliberate. He'd seen this pattern before. Boards forgetting. They're fiduciaries, not monarchs. Over the next week, the harassment turned pettier. A random wellness check from the county after an anonymous noise complaint. Scout barking at ducks. A citation for unapproved mailbox color. Same beige it's been since 2010. A visitor pass revoked for Dana after she dropped off coffee. Each one small enough to seem trivial, but cumulative enough to sap energy. At night, I'd sit by the window, porch light off, watching the faint blue flash of HOA patrol headlights sweeping the street. Scout's ears would twitch at each pass. I'd whisper, "Easy, buddy. They're just scared." Dana called on a Thursday, voice low. "I overheard something at the post office. Cheryl met with the Lakeshore rep and a council liaison. They're planning a surprise maintenance inspection on your property this weekend." "Without notice?" "That's what I heard." Saturday came humid and bright. I was already outside, camera set on a tripod angled toward the dock. At 9:14 a.m., a white pickup with Lakeshore lettering rolled up. 2 men in safety vests stepped out, clipboard and measuring wheel in hand. "Morning," I called. "Scheduled shoreline check," one said, avoiding eye contact. "Got the notice?" I asked. They hesitated. "Verbal authorization from the board." "Then you'll need a warrant or my consent, which you don't have. This is private property, parcel 27A, deed on file." I said it evenly, no shouting. The camera whirred softly. They left after 3 minutes, muttering into their phones. I noted the time, weather, and license plate. The small metal latch on my gate clicked shut behind them, one of those satisfying sounds that remind you of boundaries. Later that day, Cheryl emailed a group announcement. Due to non-cooperation by certain residents, the board is considering suspension of common privileges, including boat launch access. She was bluffing again, not realizing I now owned the access path. I reread the email, the words glowing cold on the screen. My plan solidified right there. I wouldn't just defend my property, I'd reform the entire board structure while they were still scrambling. That night, I called Jeff and Dana on speaker. "We'll need an audience," I said. "A formal setting with recorders running." "The annual budget meeting's in 10 days, Jeff said. "Perfect stage." "And the leverage?" "Hold until the vote," I replied. "Let them commit publicly to the lie first." Dana exhaled sharply. "You're going to light them up, aren't you?" "Only with daylight." For the next 10 days, I kept quiet. No responses, no arguments, just patient observation. Let the pressure build. Cheryl mistook silence for surrender. Her confidence bloomed on the HOA forum posts, dripping with self-congratulation. When the agenda circulated, budget adjustments and access rights review, I smiled. They were about to discuss funding for a parcel they didn't own. Visual beat number 1. On the eve of the meeting, I spread my documents across the dock table. Deeds, maps, inspection photos, then snapped the binder shut with a metallic clack. The reflection of the porch light glinted off the stamped seal like a promise. Before turning in, I wrote one more line beneath my Day 1 note. Day 38. They don't know who owns the floor they're standing on. And before we roll into that meeting, let me ask you, if you discovered your HOA had been operating on property they never owned, would you confront them publicly or quietly take the leverage to negotiate reform? Drop your thought below. I read everyone. The night before the meeting, I barely slept. The lake was still, like it knew something was about to crack. Scout paced by the window, restless too. I could feel the quiet weight of the binder on my kitchen counter, every stamped page humming with potential energy. 41 days since that first fine. One dog, one dock, one promise. By morning, I'd ironed my shirt, polished my shoes, and loaded the binder into my briefcase. I wasn't dressing for them. I was dressing for credibility. Cheryl thrived on optics. She used posture as intimidation. Today, I'd speak her language and out-articulate her in it. The community hall buzzed with low conversation when I arrived. Folding chairs in neat rows, a podium with a half-dead microphone, the faint smell of stale coffee and air conditioning. A video camera perched on a tripod, local journalist or curious neighbor I couldn't tell. I nodded at Dana and Frank, who sat near the front. Their expressions told me everything. Ready. Cheryl opened the session like a politician. Thank you for attending the Lake Adeline HOA Budget and Policy Review. We appreciate your civility. That last word, civility, was her way of warning people not to interrupt. She launched into charts about maintenance liabilities and parcel upkeep fees. Her slide showed a new line item: Lake Access Road Improvements, estimated cost, $12,700. I almost smiled. They were budgeting repairs for land they didn't own. After 40 minutes of numbers, Cheryl announced, final agenda item, discussion of unresolved property and access issues. Mr. Grant, you have 5 minutes. I stood, placed the binder on the podium, and opened it to the first page. Let's start with the parcel you call Access Road. I slid a map onto the overhead projector. As of May 14, 2025, this strip of land is privately owned by Adeline Holdings I, my LLC. Here's the recorded deed. A murmur spread through the room. The Lakeshore rep fidgeted, whispering into his phone. I continued, voice even. The HOA has been collecting dues for maintenance of this property since 2005 without a recorded easement or access license. That's 20 years of unpermitted use. Cheryl leaned forward. This is grandstanding. The association has implied rights. Implied rights don't trump recorded deeds, I said calmly. Knowledge nugget number 4. Under property law, any easement must be express, appurtenant, and recorded to bind successors in title. You skipped that last part. Gasps and murmurs again. Someone in the back whispered, "Is that true?" I clicked to the next page. Photos of their maintenance trucks parked on my new parcel, time-stamped and geotagged. These are trespasses, but I'm not here to litigate. I'm here to offer a path forward. Cheryl laughed sharply, a brittle sound. You're offering us something? Yes. Continued access, provided all citations against me and any residents tied to selective enforcement are rescinded, and the HOA adopts a new transparency charter, open votes, term limits, and financial audits. Her face paled slightly. She didn't expect reform terms. She expected ransom. Frank muttered under his breath, "He's flipping the table." Cheryl tried to regain footing. The board will not be blackmailed by threats. I raised the binder slowly, letting the metallic ring of the clips echo. Then this will go to the county ombuds, the state's real estate division, and your insurer. You have unfiled easement exposure worth roughly $750,000 in aggregate liability. Your policy doesn't cover unrecorded encroachments. The silence this time wasn't just shock. It was calculation. The Lakeshore rep stood, face drained. We should take a recess. Sit down, Cheryl hissed, but her voice cracked halfway through. I looked around the room, making sure, to meet a few neighbors' eyes. I'm not here to destroy the HOA. I'm here to rebuild it into something decent. You can't govern fairness through fear. That's when the microphone cut out. Classic Cheryl move. She'd probably signaled the AV guy to mute me, but the journalist, or whoever he was, kept filming. His red light blinked steady. I leaned forward and finished without amplification. This community deserves honesty, starting tonight. The room erupted in voices, some clapping, some arguing. Cheryl tried to gavel them down, but the wood struck air more than order. That evening, when I got home, the exhaustion hit like gravity. I fed Scout, opened a beer, and stood by the dock watching the lake catch the sunset. My phone buzzed. An email from Cheryl's address, but written by the HOA council. Cease and desist pending review. Any further trespass on HOA common elements may result in police involvement. I laughed softly. They still didn't realize the reversal had already happened. I owned the road beneath their common element. Then, at 9:27 p.m., headlights swept across my driveway. A sheriff's cruiser. My pulse spiked until I saw who stepped out. Deputy Morgan, the same officer who'd checked noise complaints before. He held up a paper. "Mr. Grant, you've been accused of blocking HOA access." I handed him the deed copy, highlighted in yellow. "That road's private property now, Deputy, and access continues per my written permission. No obstruction." He read it carefully, then looked at me with a faint smile. "Looks clean to me. They're wasting my time again." He turned to leave but paused. "You're stirring up quite a hornet's nest, sir." "Sometimes the nest needs stirring," I said. He laughed, tipped his hat, and drove off. That small validation, the law on my side, in real time, felt like oxygen. As the cruiser's taillights disappeared, I looked down at Scout and whispered, "We're past the halfway mark, boy." Before we dive into what came next, I want your take. When someone in power breaks the rules, they or should they face the same fines they issue, or heavier ones for hypocrisy? Tell me what you'd write into the new bylaws. By sunrise, word had spread. The HOA forum was lit up like a brush fire, half the neighborhood demanding Cheryl's resignation, the other half accusing me of sabotaging community unity. I read every comment with my morning coffee, the bitter taste sharper than usual. Scout rested his chin on my knee while I scrolled. The story had legs now, and the truth always travels faster than lies once paper hits public record. The county ombudsman emailed me at 9:43 a.m. Subject line, verification of parcel ownership and reported access dispute. They'd received a copy of the budget meeting video from an anonymous resident. I didn't need to guess who. Dana's subtle fingerprints were all over the word choice. They were opening a review. That single line changed everything. The HOA was no longer in control of the narrative. The state had entered the ring. Over the next few days, I went quiet again, like bait before a strike. I still mowed my lawn, waved at neighbors, walked Scout past the same dock they once claimed as theirs. But every routine movement was threaded with preparation. I drafted affidavits, cross-checked the HOA's filings, and printed a final exhibit packet for what I knew was coming, a formal inspection hearing. The email arrived that Friday. Notice of mandatory review. Lake Adeline, HOA, June 3rd, 9 o'clock a.m., County Administration Building. Attendance required for board officers, management firm, and any named property parties. Jeff called that night. "This is your stage, Mark. You'll want every fact tight. I've got binders A through E." He chuckled. "I'd expect nothing less. Just remember, stay measured. Let them look frantic." I did. June 3rd came humid, overcast, the air heavy with that metallic scent before a storm. The hearing room buzzed with quiet tension. At the center table, Cheryl sat rigid, her blazer color coordinated with the Lakeshore rep beside. Her. Their attorney, a young man with slicked hair and a trembling stack of papers, whispered frantically as if words could undo deeds. The county ombudsman, a tall man named Reynolds with silver hair and reading glasses perched low on his nose, opened the session. "We're here to verify property rights, easement filings, and enforcement conduct by the Lake Adeline HOA. His voice was calm but razor-edged. He turned to me first. "Mr. Grant, please summarize your claim." I stood, buttoned my jacket, and handed over the packet. My property, Lot 27A, includes full riparian rights as per the recorded deed. The HOA levied fines without jurisdiction. Furthermore, as of May 14th, Adeline Holdings 1, wholly owned by me, holds parcel 27B, previously assumed to be common property. The HOA has no recorded easement for its use. Reynolds flipped through the packet. The only sounds were paper, rain tapping glass, and Cheryl's nervous foot tapping under the table. He looked up. "Ms. Lang, is there a recorded easement?" Cheryl hesitated. "There is. Historical practice." Not what I asked. His tone didn't rise, but the air tightened. "Is there a recorded easement?" She looked to her attorney, who swallowed hard. "No, sir. None on record." The room's silence was broken only by the sound of my pen clicking once, softly. Then, Reynolds said, "The board has been maintaining and charging fees on private property for nearly 2 decades?" The Lakeshore rep tried to interject. "We believed." "You believed incorrectly," Reynolds cut in. "Belief isn't title." He turned back to me. "Mr. Grant, any damages claimed?" "Not financial," I said. "Just reform. We need a transparent HOA with accountable leadership and equal enforcement." That line shifted the energy in the room. You could feel it, the audience leaning in, sensing this wasn't revenge but restoration. Reynolds nodded. "Come, Endable. I'll be making recommendations accordingly." Then came the sound I'd waited for, the official stamp thudding onto the page, the inspector's seal validating what I'd known since day one, truth recorded, visual beat number 2. Rain streaked the window behind the ombudsman as the stamp hit the paper, a dull, wet thwack echoing like a gavel. The reflection caught Cheryl's face, pale and rigid. After the session, neighbors gathered in the lobby. Dana hugged me tight, whispering, "You turned the tide." Frank clapped me on the shoulder. "It's over, right?" "Not yet," I said. "Now comes the cleanup." Because the fallout began within 24 hours. The HOA insurer suspended their policy pending review. Lakeshore announced operational withdrawal. 3 board members resigned before sunrise. Cheryl, though, doubled down, posting a defiant message online about outsiders undermining unity. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. The dominoes were already falling, one press release at a time. But privately, I felt the first crack of fear. Retaliation from power is predictable. Collapse breeds chaos. Would the lake fragment into factions now? Would old friendships break with the bylaws? The idea of losing community weighed heavier than any legal paper. That night, Scout barked suddenly. Headlights flared across my dock. 2 cars, one stopping short of the gate. Doors slammed. Voices. Then retreat. Just long enough to let me know they'd come. I logged it anyway. Date, time, plates half visible. Documentation wasn't just for lawyers anymore. It was armor. And yet, beneath the adrenaline, something shifted. The fear that had anchored me for weeks loosened. Because I'd seen what leverage could do, not to destroy, but to steer. I sat at my desk, typed up a proposal titled Adeline Reform Charter, and saved it to the desktop. Next step, trade leverage for structure. Before we turn that key, tell me this. When power collapses, should the person who exposed it help rebuild what fell or walk away clean? Your answer might shape how this ends. 2 days later, the storm broke, literally and politically. Sheets of rain lashed the lake, wind howling across the docks like some old chorus of judgment. Power flickered in half the neighborhood, and for a few surreal hours, the HOA's lights, those neat rows of identical lampposts Cheryl had insisted on, went dark. By the time the sun returned, the news had too. Local Channel 8 ran a segment titled, "Homeowner Proves HOA Overstepped, County Investigation Underway." The thumbnail showed Cheryl mid-sentence, finger raised, face frozen in indignation. I didn't call the reporter, but I knew the source. Dana, once again, with her librarian precision and her knack for quiet justice. The piece quoted the Ombudsman's preliminary findings. Evidence supports the homeowner's claim of improper jurisdiction and potential misuse of member funds. It ended with Reynolds's line, clipped but clear. This case exemplifies the importance of transparency in community governance. The neighborhood group chat exploded. Apologies, accusations, a dozen, I always wondered, messages. And then, at 7:11 p.m., the inevitable ping. A direct message from Cheryl. "You've humiliated this community." "No," I typed back. I held it accountable. I didn't send it immediately. I let my thumb hover, then deleted it. Silence speaks cleaner than triumph. The next day, I received a certified invitation, Emergency HOA Assembly, June 10th, 7 o'clock p.m., Lakeside Pavilion. No agenda listed, but I could guess. They wanted to reclaim face, maybe remove me by some procedural stunt. I printed the notice, tucked it behind the first violation letter in my binder, and labeled the tab, Full Circle. When the night came, I walked to the pavilion under a twilight sky that smelled of wet pine and possibility. The parking lot overflowed with cars. Even the quieter residents had shown up. Scout stayed home this time. I needed both hands free. Cheryl stood at the podium, the HOA seal behind her like a halo cracked in half. "This meeting," she announced, "is to address recent misinformation, property confusion, and attacks on the integrity of your elected board." Murmurs already filled the room. A few "yeah rights" slipped through the crowd. I waited until she called for comments. My hand rose, steady as a level. "Mark Grant, Lot 27A." She looked reluctant but nodded. 3 minutes. Fine. I stepped forward, voice calm, deliberate. "Let's start with facts. The county confirmed on June 3rd that Parcel 27B, your so-called access road, belongs to my company. The state recorded that deed. The ombudsman validated my boundary. That's not misinformation. It's record." A low hum of agreement swept the audience. I continued. "This isn't about humiliation. It's about structure. You've governed through opacity, issuing selective fines and hiding budgets behind executive session. That stops tonight." Cheryl tried to cut in. "The board is reviewing reforms." "No," I said. "The community will. I'm proposing a motion for immediate adoption of an independent audit, term limits of 4 years, open voting, and a community access charter guaranteeing shared shoreline use without harassment." Someone clapped. Then another. It built like slow rain on a roof until the pavilion pulsed with it. Cheryl's face tightened. "You can't motion from the floor." Jeff's voice cut through the noise from the back. "Actually, the bylaws allow it if a quorum's present, and we have one." Reversal number 2 was already unfolding, though Cheryl hadn't seen it yet. I reached into my folder, pulled out a single sheet, the Adeline Reform Charter, signed by 48 homeowners, majority threshold achieved. "You're outnumbered," I said gently, "not by anger, by accountability." Her gavel struck wood, splintering slightly on the third hit. "This meeting is adjourned." But Reynolds, standing quietly at the side as neutral authority, spoke before she could storm off. "Ms. Lang, under Section 5312.06 of the State Common Interest Community Act, quorum-initiated motions supersede board adjournments. The vote proceeds." The room gasped. It was the sound of power transferring hands. Neighbors raised hands one after another. Dana, Frank, even quiet Mrs. Wilson from the far cove. The tally wasn't close, 46-3 in favor. Cheryl dropped the gavel entirely, the wooden handle rolling off the podium and clattering on the concrete floor. Visual beat number 3. The gavel lying upside down beside a stack of damp papers, the HOA seal half smudged by condensation. A symbol more honest than any speech. Reynolds recorded the results. Motion passes. The board is suspended pending audit. No one cheered. Not loudly, at least. It was relief, not victory, like exhaling after months of holding your breath underwater. Cheryl G. gathered her papers, avoiding eye contact. The Lakeshore rep was gone before the final signature dried. I walked outside into the warm night. Fireflies blinked over the grass, and the lake shimmered with reflected porch lights. Frank joined me, his steps slow but steady. "So what now, Mark?" "Now we build something worth belonging to." He smiled faintly. "Never thought I'd see the day." "Me either," I admitted. "But fairness doesn't just happen. It has to be drawn, surveyed, and staked, same as land." As the crowd filtered out behind us, I felt that quiet mix of fatigue and peace that follows a long storm. But I also knew the real work, the healing, was about to begin. And before that final chapter, I want to know, what do you think the first rule of a reformed HOA should be? Transparency, accountability, or empathy? Comment it below. This community could use your blueprint. By dawn the next morning, I stood at the end of my dock, shoes damp with dew. The water was glassy, the kind of calm that almost feels earned. Scout nudged my knee with a cold nose, as if reminding me that for all the paperwork, all the meetings, all the signatures, life here was still about mornings like this, quiet, ordinary, and free. Within a week, the county posted the official order. Lake Adeline HOA. Administrative suspension pending audit reorganization. It ran 2 paragraphs in the local paper, tucked beside the fishing report. But it might as well have been a constitutional rewrite for this community. The fallout unfolded cleanly. Cheryl resigned the next day, citing health reasons. Lakeshore dissolved its contract. The interim board formed from volunteers, Dana among them, of course. Jeff agreed to act as external legal advisor, unpaid. And Frank, bless him, took on the unglamorous role of treasurer, armed with a notebook and a $12 calculator from the gas station. The audit revealed exactly what we'd suspected, over $48,000 in administrative fees funneled through duplicate invoices. No grand embezzlement, just slow, steady siphoning. The insurer required restitution, the county approved oversight, and the new board voted to implement the charter in full. Term limits, open votes, transparent budgets, and an annual community day where decisions would be made in the open by voice, not behind closed doors. That first community day happened 6 weeks later, under a canvas tent on the same pavilion lawn where Cheryl once reigned. The air smelled like grilled corn and lake water. Kids chased each other between folding chairs. I watched from the edge, not as an adversary anymore, but as a neighbor. Dana caught my eye and raised a lemonade in mock salute. When it came time for the microphone to circle to me, I hesitated before speaking. What happened here? That case, I said, wasn't about a dock or a dog. It was about remembering that communities aren't supposed to be corporations. They're promises, and promises need witnesses. A hush settled. No applause, no noise, just that collective hum of understanding that doesn't need punctuation. Then, as if to puncture the solemnity, Scout barked once, sharp and cheerful. Laughter rippled across the crowd. Afterward, I walked the shoreline with Reynolds, who'd stayed on as a liaison for a few months. "You handled this better than most," he said. "I didn't handle it alone," I replied. "Turns out integrity's contagious when you give it air." He nodded. "You'd be surprised how rare that is." "I'd rather make it less rare," I said. Later that evening, I sat back on the dock with Scout beside me, flipping through the last page of my notebook. "Beneath Day 1, document everything," I wrote. Day 94, restore everything. The lake shimmered with reflections of porch lights from homes that finally felt connected again. A small rowboat drifted by, 2 kids laughing as they tugged at a stubborn fishing line. It struck me that peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of fairness. What changed after? Cheryl was cited by the state for fiduciary breach, probation, restitution, barred from future HOA leadership. Lakeshore's management license was suspended pending review. The new board published its first transparent budget online. No redactions, no executive sessions. The local news ran a follow-up titled, "From Feud to Reform, How One Resident Redefined HOA Accountability." And the dock? Still standing. Still Scout's favorite nap spot. If you believe I've fought the right way and this is how it should end, say a few words in the comments for your friend. Subscribe so future stories reach you first. As responsible citizens, share this so others learn, because fairness, like water, only stays clean when we keep it moving. That's on us. I watched the last light fade across the ripples, the lake mirroring back a softer sky. I whispered half to Dad, half to myself, "We did it right this time." Then I closed the notebook, locked it in the desk, and smiled at the thought already forming for next week's upload. Next case, I murmured, might be the HOA that tried to tax a sunrise.